feel like I should make a game of spot what's missing each week. Take a look around. Tell me what's not here this week that was here last week. So this is actually like the second time that I've tried this video. I really got to get into the habit of checking to make sure that I can see audio coming through, because what I forgot to do was plug in my microphone. So that is actually going to dovetail in nicely with today's topic, which is effectively embracing the unscripted in life. So I actually have had to do this quite a bit in my life. You probably have too. But there have been a lot of moments in my life, my career, my relationships, where things didn't go as planned and I had to kind of work with what I had. I've become very good at improvising with minimal resources. And part of, as I've gone along and as I've lived my life with my wife, Kara, there's been a lot of things that have come up that we were not looking for, that we didn't know quite what to do with at the time sometimes. And a lot of things that we thought were going to happen that just completely went off the rails. Now, some of the best examples of moving away from the idea of there being sort of a single right path come from when we were doing van life and before that RV life. But there's one story that comes to mind right away. I told this story in the previous unrecorded version of this, but at one point, Kara and I, we had gotten into the van, but we still at that time owned our big giant RV, and we had been renting it out through a service. But we never got any rentals. We never got any information about it. We never knew where it was. And I managed to track it down in Indiana. And so our first official trip in the van, we drove there and found it and reclaimed it. And then once we got into it, we realized, oh man, this thing is completely trashed. Now our goal was to try to sell it, but someone had allowed it well, let's just put it this way. All these emails and text messages about it never being used or rented were a lie. So they had clearly been letting someone live in it. They trashed it. They broke a bunch of stuff. And so we took it to a consignment place and put it up with not a lot of hope about how well it was going to sell. But eventually someone did actually buy it. So in part, that's actually a good example of things not going as planned. Our plan was to rent this thing out, make plenty of money to make the payments. It becomes a source of revenue. But that plan got derailed by somebody who was a little crooked. And so we learned some lessons from that. And then we had to improvise, which meant we ended up paying out of pocket around 30 grand in order to be able to sell it. But we were able to offload it and get it off our shoulders. So that was one example, but coming out of that, once we located it and took it to a consignment place, now we had to figure out what we were going to do next, and we were fresh, new in the whole van life thing, and so what we did was effectively throw a digital dart. We got on Google, we got on Google Maps, and just sort of flippantly chose a spot, and we ended up choosing Holland, Michigan. Neither of us had ever been there, had ever even heard of it, but we decided we'll drive up. We saw that its tourist season was coming to a close pretty soon, but we got there at the tag end of autumn, I guess, as things were starting to kind of cool down. Actually, I guess we were just getting there as autumn was ramping up, and things were starting to cool down. And so a lot of shops were closed and everything, but we effectively had this great spot, and we could hang out there for a couple of months. And we ended up loving that place. And so we never would have found that had we not just gotten off the beaten path. So this idea that there's only one right way to do things has always kind of been in the back of our minds, as it probably is for you as well. In our minds, the path was we put that RV up for rental. Someone is taking care of it for us. We don't have to worry about it. We just collect the money. But what ended up happening was very different. So our ability to adjust the plan ended up kind of providing a whole new path for us. So not one right path, but many paths could come out of that. I think that's an important way to think about things, your life, your career, your relationships, because when your plans implode, they can kind of become a catalyst for detours. Another van life oriented story on this is when we would be off in the middle of nowhere in Colorado or Wyoming or someplace like that, and we were driving using GPS, and something would glitch. GPS threw us off the main highways or something, got us off stranded in the middle of nowhere. We ended up finding these places that we never would have stumbled across had we stuck to the original plan, if we were only highway driving. So what we ended up doing was becoming kind of fond of getting lost. Because, I mean, hey, we had the van, we had plenty, we had a place to sleep, a place to use the bathroom, food, water, all of that. So there was no worry about any of that. As long as we had gas, we could keep going. So we would end up in some really out of the way places because of some, bad turn, right? Well, we learned how to flow with that and ended up discovering that those were some of our best memories. We ended up in places, like I said, we never would have gone to on purpose. And so as a result, Kara and I actually now highly value taking that accidental wrong turn. And sometimes we'll do it on purpose. Hey, look, there's a road. Have you ever been down that road? Let's go down that road. And so you end up finding, now there's danger in this, of course, so you use discretion. But generally, if you're out in the world, there's not a lot you can do that's going to be all that, dramatic or dangerous. Don't go wandering on anyone's private property or anything. But if you're out on the roads of America, take that left turn instead of the right turn and see where you end up. There's always a way back. The road goes both ways. So, and then what that's done, that sort of thinking, it's kind of allowed me to forge new skills. Over the span of my lifetime, I've had lots of times where I had to kind of improvise and do things a little different than I might have done them or might have thought I was going to do them. For example, when Kara and I first got married, I was pretty used to working as a contractor, working as a freelancer. So my revenue was kind of all over the place, but she was not used to that. She was used to a steady paycheck, used to knowing when the money was going to be there, how much money was going to be there. And she was, she budgeted and allocated. But I never could live like that. And so I got used to being able to manage sporadic money. And so I knew what my expenses were. I knew what I'd have to make each month in order to keep myself fed and keep myself with a roof over my head. So, I made sure to always have that kind of set aside. Well, that was a useful skill, as it turns out. I've had to use that skill a lot in my adult life. And Kara has slowly learned how to do that as well. It's not always ideal. It's not always the best plan to just kind of, run and gun without a plan. But having the ability to do that is a useful skill. You also pick up other useful skills. Like the ability to put things to a different purpose than for which they were intended. I remember in a high school physics class, one of my favorite exercises was, the teacher shows up one day with this box. And in the box are, dozens of items. And we have to go up and just reach in and randomly pick up an item. And so the assignment for the afternoon was to make a list of all the ways in which you could use that item that are outside of its intended purpose. So if you picked up, a brick, yes, a brick can go into a wall, but what else can it do? And then you start with all the obvious things. Well, it could be a paperweight. It could, it could help smash a walnut so you could eat a walnut. It could smash some glass in case you need to get into a building in an emergency or get out of a building in an emergency. Those are all the obvious things, but then when you have to make a list of like 100 things, you start getting kind of creative with that exercise. So, You can use a brick to raise the water level in a toilet tank, for example. Another common use, but maybe you weren't thinking along those lines before. But since it can do that, what are some related things it could do? So there's all these options and opportunities that come up that you never would have thought about had you not gone through this exercise. And because you go through this exercise, now anytime you see a brick, you think, oh, I know 100 ways to use that brick. Same is true with pens and pencils. Same is true with, like I have this, in my journals, I tend to keep these little metal bookmarks because I can use them as straight edges, but I've also used these. I've used this one for like a pry bar every now and then to help me scrape glue residue off of glass. There's dozens of different ways you could probably use it, and I could probably sit here and think of a few more. And just because some don't readily come to mind doesn't mean you can't think of a whole bunch of creative ways. So that's a useful skill to have, because if you find yourself out in the middle of nowhere without a toolbox or something, and you need to say, remove a screw so that you can get into your battery compartment, something, there's always something, right? Well, I could probably use that as a flathead screwdriver, right? Use the corner of it to get into those little Phillips screws. It might not be the best choice of tool for that, but I'm not completely without resources. This, by the way, is why I always carry like a multi-tool in my pocket everywhere I go. But when I travel, I can't carry that because of the knife blade. So I have other little tools. In my wallet, I've got these like little card multi-tools, little metal tools that have all kinds of, there's like wrenches and screwdriver edges and all kinds of things that are very useful if you have no other options. So are they the best tools for any purpose? No, but the ability to improvise makes those useful. And if I didn't have them with me, I might have to use something else, like my pen or my belt buckle, or a dozen or 100 other things. A paper clip. I've used paper clips for a crazy amount of stuff. So having that ability to repurpose something, to improvise, that is a useful skill. And I use this in storytelling, by the way. So one good example, in my book Evergreen, the character is he's been kidnapped and captured. He's being held captive, and he needs to escape. He has no weapons. He has he doesn't even know where he is. He's being held in this apartment, and he's being watched very closely. And what he ends up coming up with is he needs to pee, so he goes. He asks if he can go to the bathroom. There's nothing in that bathroom. There's not even a bar of soap or a hand towel. He is told to get his business done and get out. And what he ends up doing is using the only thing in that bathroom that he has access to, which is the tank of the toilet tank, the cover of the toilet tank. And he uses that as a weapon, beats this guy down, and manages to escape. So, I got criticized for that, by the way. I had someone really take offense at that, just think it was the stupidest idea. I understand, but hey, man, that book is a popular book. So, but the point is, I can use these same skills in my career in this other way. I have characters who are in dire situations. Their resources are limited. What would I do in that situation? What sorts of things do I default to, depend on, rely on, that sort of thing? That's how stories are woven together. The detours are what make the story. You see this a lot in literature and film, television. Some of the best stories are the ones that kind of go off script a little, or at least they seem to go off script. A good story tends to be someone had a plan and that plan got disrupted. Now they have to pick up the pieces of their life and do the thing. That can help punch up drama in a story. If you've got, I'm trying to think of a good example. Nothing's really coming to mind right now, but You often see these stories where the heroes have a plan to take down the bad guy, and it's all dependent on this thing. And then the thing doesn't happen, or they drop the thing and they lose the thing, and so now they have to improvise. And so there's a punch of drama to that because, well, oh no, the plan has gone off the rails. What are we going to do? We don't have the resource. This was our only hope, and now we don't have it. But overcoming obstacles like that, that's the sort of thing we cheer for. When the plan goes awry for our protagonists in a story, that's the sort of thing that excites us as readers and watchers, because plans go awry in our lives all the time. So it's a way to sort of practice ahead of time this idea of even though things aren't going as planned, we can still survive, we can still succeed. Things can still work out. We like that. So I guess if there's a call to action to this whole thing, it is to embrace the unscripted. That's really what we're talking about here. Life is an unscripted play. We never know how things are going to turn out. Even when we think we're going to know how things turn out, things rarely go exactly as planned. When they do, that's great. And, no need to complicate things. You can just flow with things sometimes. But more often, I don't know about for you, but for me, more often, I find myself having to improvise. I find myself having to use what I've got. And sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes there's just not enough resources. But somehow I have to muddle through anyway. We're experiencing that right now with this downsizing and move. This came as a sort of necessity for us, but we've reframed it so that we can see this as more of an opportunity. When we built this house, I joked that this was my feet first house, that carting me out of here on a stretcher was pretty much how I was leaving. Turns out that's not going to be the case. But as we kind of looked at all this, and we realized, this house is massively too much for us, and we're having to struggle right now to kind of hold on to it. Well, why? Why struggle to do that? This is where, the GPS glitching out on us is going to actually give us an opportunity to explore something we never would have explored before. So we're making new choices and taking new directions, and we're taking advantage of this and using it as a resource now. And the way we're doing that is embracing a more minimalist lifestyle, embracing downsizing so that we decrease our footprint and we no longer have to worry about the weight of all the things that we carry, the literal physical weight, but also just the emotional, psychological weight of all these things. I joked at the beginning that, to spot the things that are missing, there's going to be a lot of that over the coming weeks. There will probably come a point where I'm doing this from a completely different spot because I don't have a desk here anymore. And in some sense, that feels kind of sad to me because I love this office. I love this backdrop. But I'm embracing it and choosing to be excited about it and choosing to be optimistic about it because now I get to start over and rebuild something new and do it a whole new way. And that will become my look, my signature, my environment. So that is, I think, one of the best life skills of all. Embracing the unscripted. Being able to go off script and still get the scene, get the play done. Lots of valuable lessons to learn there, lots of valuable skills to pick up there. So I think that's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. I'm being told by YouTube that about 88% of people who recur and come back and watch all my content, especially the Walking Kev shorts that I do, about 88% of you are not subscribed. So make sure you like and share and subscribe. Leave me a comment, actually. Say something in the comments about how you handle the unscripted in your own life, and maybe we'll all learn something from that. I appreciate you being here, but yes, please subscribe. Also, check out the accompanying Substack post that I will surely have posted by now. I always do a companion piece with these on Substack, or try to. Actually, that's the point of this, is to provide some content on Substack. So really, this video is the companion to the Substack post. It's just that I tend to do the video first. It helps me kind of get my thoughts out. But please go and subscribe to me on Substack, because that's where all the real magic happens. I've been spending most of my time and energy building that up. That's seems to be a great way for people to discover me and my work. You can also find my books if you are looking for something to read, especially as Christmas is coming up. Go to kevintumlinson.com/books. Find my Substack at kevintumlinson.substack.com. And, make sure you like, share, and subscribe on this video here on YouTube. That's going to do it. Thank you so much for being here and for being a part of this whole improvised journey, this unscripted play that we are a part of. God bless you. I'll see you all next time.